It's loading up.
Okay.
Okay, we are
I
live.
just want to remind
Jan, we can't really understand what you're saying.
I don't know what I'm going to do. This is the best I can do. I've turned everything off.
We can hear you at least that way. We can understand you that way.
Okay, it's 7:02, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Old Saybrook Board of Education to order, and we will start by doing a Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda this evening is our audience of citizens. Trent, is there anybody online tonight?
There is nobody online at the moment.
Okay, so we'll skip over that. And our next item are the report.
1 second. I just got a text from Jane. She can't get in without a passcode. She's pretty frustrated. Sure what to tell her.
Why don't you guys continue with the meeting, and I'll see if I can resend her the invitation on Zoom right now.
Okay, I'll let her know.
Thanks, Trent. Okay, our first item on the agenda are the reports by the student board reps.
Hi guys.
Hello.
It's been a while since I've been here, so I'm happy to be back.
Hmm.
I guess I'll get started with clubs. So, first thing is the yearbook, which is moving along very swiftly. We have over 80 pages completed. We are perfectly on track. We're doing great. And then the DECA club that was begun this year, the marketing club, they have a competition coming up, and they'll be competing on topics relating to what they've learned through the club with marketing and such. I think we are going to go, I'm not 100% positive where it is, but we go somewhere. We all just took a test in the last week to like qualify us for that. NHS is working on their food drive. So they're running a new project every month to give back to the community, and this month is the food drive. Student government is trying to plan a movie night coming up in the auditorium. Quiz Bowl has been looking for more members. They're encouraging a lot of students to join because they say that it's very low commitment and it's fun. They have meets where they compete with neighboring shoreline schools every once in a while, but those aren't too often either. So it's very like low key. And then art club is also encouraging more students to join, where they can work on their art projects after school on Tuesdays. And then on the academic aspect of things, we've had this large focus on tech ed recently. So Mr. Sagnella and Dr. Fletcher came into our super meeting on January 24th to kind of discuss their vision for tech ed in the future. And they're working to allow like earning a college credit through a tech ed class. They want to gather student feedback on how people would like want to be a part of this program. And they've been sending out what they call sizzle reels, which are videos giving insights into a course to kind of see what it's like. They shared them to the 8th graders in the morning news so that way they could kind of see what the class was before they picked them for their course selection. And they kind of want to make it more known that college isn't the only option for post-secondary schooling, and that trade schools and things that include a lot of tech ed can happen too. And then midterms ended, thank God. And students feel pretty good about how their midterms went. Freshmen are very relieved that they're over. They said that they weren't as bad as they were expecting. They had a lot of stress beforehand as they felt like they didn't have a lot of information on what they were expecting, but I think that they understood it a lot more like now that it's done, and they're much more prepared for finals. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for me. I think it's Amelia's turn.
Yeah, so starting off, I'm not actually sure if you guys can see me right now because my Wi-Fi has been really spotty. I've been trying to turn my camera on. It's not really working. It's been on and off. But to start off with extracurriculars, there is a band concert on February 15th, which is this Thursday. And the bands participating in that are going to be Band 1, the freshman sophomore band, and Band 2, which is the junior and senior band. Chorus had a concert on the 1st, and then the French classes got to go on their Quebec trip from January 25th to the 27th, and students really enjoyed it. They had a lot of fun. They got to go see a lot of things. And for chorus, Kaden Ratineri is going to regionals for chorus, so she qualified for that. And set pieces for the musical are being rented. They're on stage. If you've been in the auditorium, you've probably seen some of them. They're all up there. The musical is going along smoothly. And then Taj, which is Theater Art and Jazz Night, is going to be February 22nd, at 7:30. And then to move on to sports, we're beginning to think about our spring sports season. So the girls lacrosse meeting was on the 24th, January 24th. Baseball was already in the weight room for training on January 23rd. And then the softball team had a meeting on February 8th to see how many students are interested in joining. And then for our current sports seasons, girls basketball had, as of Friday, a record of 8-4. They qualified for states after a win over Cromwell, and their senior night is this Thursday, February 15th. And then Shorelines starts Saturday at 2 p.m., and it will start with a home game. Boys basketball has a record of 1-10 currently, but students still think that they are going to be making a comeback. According to Drew Coleman, he says the energy is shifting. So they have a positive outlook on the rest of their season. And I believe that they did win 2 more games after this because these numbers are old. So maybe he's right. And then their senior night is on February 19th. And then for indoor track, Carly Castro has committed to running D1 track at Fairfield University and the girls indoor track team on Shorelines. And then additionally, this is not on the document, but girls indoor track, I believe, tied for 7th at Shorelines, with students such as Carly Castro placing. And then boys track tied for 14th at states. And I believe Parker Cook, Everett Miller, and Jacob D'Angelo all placed in their events. And yeah, that's it. So I think I'm going to leave the meeting and come back and see if I can get my camera to work. But that's it for our report, if you guys have any questions.
Great, thank you. Board members, do you have any questions for our board reps?
I do.
Okay, Eileen?
Yeah, this is a question. Wonderful report. For Samantha, could you just clarify, perhaps I missed it, the marketing club is marketing, learning how to market, or what are they marketing? If you don't mind just giving a little bit of an update what that club is about.
Yeah, so I think that I talked about DECA
It's
like maybe one of the last times that I was here because it is a new club this year, but it's basically just like looking at marketing and business and such. So if people were to go into marketing or business as a major or a career, it's kind of just giving them some background for that.
Is there a staff member that?
Did she just
Did
freeze?
you hear?
Eileen, you're
No,
frozen.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, is there a staff member who heads that club?
Yeah, Miss Daly is helping us with it, but it's mostly student run.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members? Okay, thank you very much. Next item is our correspondence, Karen.
We don't have any correspondence this evening. No.
Okay, very good. So moving on, our consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Make a motion.
Okay, and second
Second.
by Eileen. Any discussion or questions?
There's one.
Karina, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a delayed action here. I know that I did have a question on one of the procedures on the policies, and I apologize, I don't have it at the tip of my finger. I know that I think I got the answer to it though, right? Didn't I email that to you?
Yes, hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, so Board Member Julius correctly noted that there was no change in the graduation policy between Old Saybrook's requirements for the current year and 25 and 26. There was no change amongst those and the year 27. And so we're going to remove the years 26, 5, 6, and 7 and say starting with the year of 2024. The change is that personal finance is already required by us, whereas the state is requiring it with the class of 2027. So we're just going to change the years on that. It won't affect anything because the language is already present. It's just we had to divide it in two places. So I appreciate you picking that up, Karina.
Thank you, and thanks for addressing that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Jan. Any other questions? Okay, seeing there's no other questions, let's call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you. Moving on, the next item is our technology education presentation this evening.
Yes. Sorry, I've got to remember how I'm doing this. So I just want to say, first of all, I want to thank all of the staff members who are here this evening. We not only closed schools, we closed offices. I think the town hall did that as well. And so these folks are truly on a vacation day and they're here with us this evening. And I want to thank them all for being here. And with that, I will turn this exciting presentation over to Nick Sagnella and Dr. Fletcher. We really launched into something, really leaned into our tech ed opportunities. We've been learning from our students that the tech ed that we've been offering, maybe it wasn't what they needed for their careers. And so we had Nick Sagnella take some time this year to make partnerships, to create pathways. And now he's going to present an update to the board that will help you understand where we're going with this. And I'm very, very pleased to see this happening. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick and Dr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, everybody, first of all, for having us here tonight. And Sam, thank you for that very detailed insight. That was, I think you hit the nail on the head with what we're trying to do. And as Jan had said, my name is Nick Sagnella. I'm the middle school technology education teacher, but I'm also this year specifically looking into how we can build out tech ed in our district of Old Saybrook. With any initiative that we have, we feel that in Old Saybrook, it's important that we align it to our strategic plan. So that was one of the first things, we want to make sure we were doing, we were clear about, and we feel like with what we're trying to do, it's really tying into equity as well as the high quality instruction. We also have, our own vision that we'll share shortly. Again, we felt that was important to align to the district's vision of a learner. We feel specifically with the parts referring to students, being more involved in the community, and, having, enjoyable experiences and really, making the most out of it. We want to make sure we align to that as well. And achieving their highest aspirations. That was the phrase I was looking for. So our vision, we really wanted to look into, what do we want our students to leave Old Saybrook with that have gone through the tech ed program. So we kind of boil it down to a few bigger buckets. First being career pathways. So if they have a chance to come into high school and take something that's going to help them work towards a career that they take interest in, we absolutely want to do that. So that is, absolutely goal number one. With that comes advanced level coursework. So the dual enrollment, the concurrent enrollment, chances for them to earn actual credit that they can take to either a degree program or a certificate program in our building. We feel like that's an important thing to look into because that is something that is happening around the state in certain districts. We also were looking into partnership opportunities. So really trying to establish those concrete partnerships with organizations that whether it's in the shape of an internship or shadowing or a field trip, but something where if a student comes to us with a certain interest, we have something for them. That's something that we're definitely working towards. And then at the end of it, if we want any student to leave Old Saybrook who was involved in tech ed, knowing that they've had enjoyable experiences and being able to speak highly of what they did and see the value of what they did as well.
And what we're really hoping to boil it all down to is like two really simple and clear goals. One is either that students are obtaining some college level credit for participating and in being enrolled inside of a tech ed class, or that we're aligning our programming so that students are earning credits or requirements that would line them up for a certificate. So whether they're getting college credit or working their way to a certificate are two really big goals that we're trying to move towards.
Absolutely. And then that leads us to the short term. So as far as this year, what can we do that's going to help us work towards that? And really, the first thing we want to look at was the low hanging fruit, things that are, little changes that we can make realistically in year one that are going to help us, achieve that vision and those goals. So first of all, meeting with those potential partners. And I'm not sure if Trent had sent out the acronym sheet, but I'll explain. The YMPI is the Youth Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative. Goodwin is Goodwin University. CSCC, Connecticut State Community College, and Central Connecticut State University, CCSU. Those are to name a few. There were a few more that we had met with, but really we're in this stage of it. It's gathering information and seeing what's out there before we just kind of jump into and commit to anything without really fully, thinking it through, and especially without having, insight and feedback from stakeholders. We also have the CTE, the Career Technical Education Expo, which was a chance for the classes of the CTE department to, put on display the work that's happening in their class. And if you look on the screen, you can see from the Woodworking 1 class with Mr. Carlone, there are some student work examples that were on display for parents to see on report card night. I think that was in November. We also feel it's very important to gather student feedback in the form of surveys and focus groups. We had sent out surveys to students that are currently enrolled in our classes. That was one survey. We also sent one out to students that are not enrolled or maybe were enrolled and had dropped out, just so we can really get all aspects of student feedback. And then from there, we went a little bit deeper in with focus groups, which we're in the process of meeting right now, just with little pockets of students, that are going to give us that variety of feedback that we need. We also have the Stagecraft class, which you're actually going to see a little video on shortly. That's was an attempt to kind of appeal to more students. It's where we teamed up with the theater group for the play, and it was again a chance to kind of give more students a chance to kind of get involved in the tech ed program. And then lastly, we have the sizzle reels that Sam had mentioned earlier. And those are, as we'll see, a chance for students that are not enrolled in the classes to see what is in there. And those were very kindly produced and recorded by Trent. And he did an excellent job. And it's, again, just something to show what each class is about. We have an example from our shop class, one of, the shop classroom, I should say, with Mr. Carlone. And we'll show another one in our engineering room with Mr. Taylor.
All right, you'll have to let me know if the volume works on this.
Hi, I'm Mr. Carlone, and this is Stagecraft. Stagecraft is a half-year course offered in the fall and in the spring semesters. In the fall, students build the set for the play, and in the spring, the students build the set for the musical. Throughout the course, students learn different stagecraft from design to build to lighting. It is a fun, hands-on class for anyone who is interested in being a part of the backstage.
And then we have one more that we'll show you from. Ooh, I think you gotta
Hi, I'm Mr.
There we go. This is with Mr. Taylor, Engineering and Architecture.
Hi, I'm Mr. Taylor, and this is Engineering and Architecture. The Engineering and Architecture course is a fun, hands-on exploration of the marriage between design and functionality of the structures all around us. Students begin by learning the principles and elements of design and how professional architects apply them to the physical structures around the globe. We learn how to make models with a variety of different scales and materials. One of the students' favorite projects is the wall framing model shed that they create using balsa wood. Not only do we create the physical model, but we design the shed in a professional 3D CAD modeling program called Revit. This lets students learn the program that they will ultimately use to design their very own dream home. By the end of the class, students will have learned how to create efficient floor plans that are to code and have created multiple scale models to represent their ideas. If you are a student who enjoys building and designing, this class is a perfect fit for you.
Thank you again, Trent, for taking the time to do those videos. And so with those videos, just very briefly, so you're aware of what we did with those. We did send those out to parents of high school, middle school students so that they had a chance to look at them. We put them on the morning news for all middle schoolers to see, specifically the 8th graders, to make sure that they were aware of them before going into course enrollment. And then the high schoolers, we had sent this out via email so that they had a chance to view it during their flex time. But now we'll move on to our vision in Old Saybrook. So, really, when it's all said and done, what do we want tech ed to look like in our schools? Starting in K-4 in Goodwin, what we feel we need at that level is hands-on experiences, a chance for students to see whether or not they enjoy working in that kind of way and learning in that kind of way before they get into high school or a middle school where it's a little bit more of an exposure to career pathways, which is what we intend as they get into middle school, where again, it's not necessarily hopping on a track to say, all right, this is what I'm sure I want to do, but it's that exposure of seeing what's out there. And the Sea Perch that we have here it's an opportunity offered by Electric Boat, where students have the chance to make a submersible remote operated vehicle. And in doing so, they are practicing with tools that are simulating trades that they could potentially go into, such as, they do soldering for the project, and that would lead to welding potentially as a trade or even at EB. But things like that, where they're getting exposure to different things before they go into high school, where, they have at this point an idea of what they want to do, and then they know what they need to take in our high school that is going to lead them to that. and it'll be very, clear, and they should have no problem, knowing what's there and being able to really make progress towards that. And a few of the opportunities that we're looking into, Go Baby Go, is with Central Connecticut State University, where students would make a battery-operated vehicle, small car for a child with disabilities. It's a very beautiful program, but that is something that is offered as concurrent enrollment that we're looking into, where they could take the electronic aspect of the class in our high school and earn credit towards a degree program at Central Connecticut State University. And we also have the next, I think it's Boat for Next Gen was what it was called. We offered it in the fall, and it was a chance for 6 of our students to go to Electric Boat's training facilities and actually practice doing the trades themselves and get literal exposure to it right there. But that's what we're looking to strive for going forward. And then we're looking at priority focus for this year. So in an attempt to align what we do in Old Saybrook with state initiatives for manufacturing tech ed, we need to build more awareness. So the sizzle reels, as well as just communicating any positive exposure for the tech ed program, we feel is going to be beneficial. Reinforcing transition from the middle school to the high school, and making sure we're vertically aligned. Again, going back to those pathways of students knowing what they want to do and being able to kind of hop on a track, on a pathway seamlessly. And I think that'll be very helpful, as well as just promoting retention in general. And we feel that that's going to happen with relevance. When the students see the purpose of the class, then they're going to be more likely to stay enrolled, which is obviously what we were aiming for. And what I attached here is a chart of our current enrollment. This is tech ed enrollment of our classes as of September, I believe, the beginning of the year. And as you can see, in grade 9, we have a generous amount of interest. And so we aim to really maintain that going forward. And then, again, that's why we're really focusing on grades 8 and 9 as, really how can we accommodate this for the students that are especially going to be seeing the change in the few years. They'll be a part of it.
And to add on to what Nick is presenting, feedback from students has become a big part of this as well, where we're looking forward to hearing what our students have to say and where their interests lie. Even immediate feedback that we got when we had our conversation, presented this to the super group at the high school. There was a comment that came up around normalizing tech ed careers as options earlier. And this is kind of inside of what we're trying to do with our priority focus being on grades 8 and 9 for this year 1 focus, because we want to normalize this. And this is in line with what the governor is promoting and providing funding and training around.
Thank you. And I believe that brings us to our final slide, which is just, this is our registration for next year as of, I want to say, about a month ago when course registration happened. So as you can see, again, those 8th graders that are now upcoming freshmen or that will be upcoming freshmen, there's a good amount of interest, initial interest, which is excellent. A little drop to grade 10. However, that's still on the higher side relative to the upper 2 grades. So this is, right now it seems like all good news that we just, need to accommodate to make sure, there's interest going forward. And I believe that brings us to the end. So if there's any questions. Karina, you can go ahead, please.
Thank you. Great presentation. And I think it's really innovative to use the sizzle reels to to communicate to the students, because it brings it to life, right? A course description doesn't really do it for kids. And I think that this might be a great avenue for other electives to use to attract students. So great job. I think it's awesome. I want to go back to the previous slide with the numbers. I have two questions. One is, help me understand the red versus the blue. And do you have a thought as to why the drop off? Is it because those more exciting courses weren't available to them, or do you have any thoughts behind that?
So the first, I'll answer the first question. The red is the individual students enrolled. So that's the actual amount of students that are taking tech ed classes, whereas the blue is a student that is taking probably 2 or more classes. So the blue is the seats, for total tech ed classes, which may be made up and which is made up of, not as many students. So the red is the actual amount.
So one student could count for a couple of courses,
exactly.
Seats. Yep. Great. Okay. Thank you.
And so as far as the drop off right now, what I found in the initial focus group meetings is that they feel the scheduling, which is hard to work around right now, but they say the scheduling in those middle years, the grades 10 and 11 are really tight, as far as to what they can take. And compared to what they have to take. And I found that in the conversations I've had, grades 9, there's a decent amount of freedom for that, as well as grade 12, believe it or not. But in those middle 2 years, it is really hard. And so that's, again, something that we have to consider. And that's why we're, doing these focus groups to get feedback such as that.
That's great. Yeah. Grade 11. That's a tough one. Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm not muted. No, excellent presentation. Boy, it really illustrates the hands-on project-based learning experiences we've been talking about so much. This is really exciting. I thank you for explaining that enrollment question. I had a question about that as well, but you talked about your gathering student feedback through surveys, et cetera. Is there anything, you're in the process of doing that now, or is that something you can share? Any areas of interest that the kids have expressed at this point, or are you still in the gathering phase?
I'm right smack dab in the middle of the gathering phase. We have, I believe, 5 focus groups, and I've done 3 so far. So I can't say we have all of that yet. But one of the main things that we've seen feedback wise has been the scheduling. That is, something that currently is a roadblock in a way. And but again, something that we need to be aware of, and we need to try to work towards going forward.
Yeah, that's always an issue here in a small school. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eileen, I think you're next.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to echo my colleagues' fantastic presentation, but more importantly, I wanted to really thank each and one of you. The collaboration is such a wonderful example for students to see Trent, and then to see Nick, and see Carrie, and great opportunity, and has taken a lot of time, your time, to take a look at the initiative, but then how to actually put it into practicality, and to be able to partner with some of the state colleges, universities. Wonderful, because it gives students not only a personal pathway, but it gives them an academic pathway. The other part that I'm applauding, because I tried to champion so many of these things for many years. And so it's time. And the good news is career pathways, connecting with Electric Boat, giving students the opportunity to realize that, a career such as this can often make as much money as an academic career, and whatever that looks like. And I don't think that's ever come to the table as much as it is now. So I want to applaud the way this was presented, the comfortability. Exciting to have as part of the student representatives report from their perspective that their voice was considered or applauded. And that's always exciting, because that's another pathway for students to know that they're included. Absolutely, exceptional. This is a terrific model for other curriculum, I think, to come forth to this Board of Education. But more importantly, I also appreciate you sharing this with parents, because there are some families that are very much in this tech field, and they probably have not really thought about how they could get their students involved in it. So you're presenting a wonderful homeschool partnership, which I think is very exciting. So I really want to applaud you. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Jenny, I think you are next.
Yeah, thanks. Great job. Just a question or a couple comments about this is projected enrollment for the next academic year, correct?
Yes.
And that's based on surveys that you have, how did you find out?
So I worked with our counselor at the middle school who has access to the course requests on PowerSchool. So she had Jen Taylor. She had given me the information of students that are requesting these courses at the high school.
Okay, and the reason why I was kind of looking at it in a couple different ways here is, so really like grade 12 would be the class of 2025.
Correct.
At that point.
That would be the current,
then, 26, 27, and 28. Because I'm just curious if you think the class of 28 will be more consistent as they move up, as we look at, jump a few years ahead of time, for the 27, 28 school year. Do are we hoping that a lot of these students stick with that and perhaps have higher levels of participation as upperclassmen? Or do you think, I mean, it's kind of a hypothetical question, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we have to kind of see, what we have in place at that time. Again, the goal is to have things in place so that these students can potentially hop on a pathway. So I would hope that the interest is up because more students will see the relevance for something. But that also being said, there could be students right now that are enrolled with, this is halfway through year one. Maybe it's more of a, they're interested with the sizzle reel and they kind of want to see if they like it. And maybe it's just I'm seeing if I like this. Oh, maybe I don't. And they don't necessarily stick with it yet. But I do think that by the time that group is seniors, we will have something in place so that the groups that come after are going to have a pathway that they can jump on. And
also,
another feedback point that we got, Dr. Fletcher, was that having the exposure at an earlier age in the middle school is something that isn't currently there as much as it could be. So I think that's something that we need to really focus in on as well. Getting students that kind of exposure of is this something I might like or not, and figuring that out in middle school before getting into high school. Because some of the focus groups I've had have said that they wish they got these kind of experiences in classes that we're talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And primarily recognizing the idea that, just like inside of the what the board just voted on earlier tonight in the consent agenda is our graduation requirements. And those requirements are 25 credits. And knowing that tech ed is a smaller sliver of that. So that's why we see some of the patterns that we are seeing, because students do have to get their 9 credits of humanities and they have to get their STEM and math credits, personal finance. And then we know that we've been legislated with other courses that students have to take. So we do see that pattern, but we still want to make sure, as Nick was saying, that we're building out job shadow opportunities as well as internships. That way students know that this is something of an option that's still there, and it still may speak to a career path that we can feed into. And the more we build it up, the more options and opportunities our students will have.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Jack, I think you're next, Jack.
Yes, hello. Nick, question for you. have you by chance had any opportunity to look into partnerships with the marine trades, such as ABYC, the American Boat and Yachting Council, or the CMTA, Connecticut Marine Trades Association, which actually one of our parents is the lead person for?
Those organizations specifically, no, but I think that is great information to know now, because this is what, I think in this phase of year one, we're still in the gathering step. So I would love to have more information on that, where I can pursue and communicate to learn more about it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we really just need to see what's out there before we commit to anything specifically. So I'd love to learn more about it.
Jack, this is Jan. If you would like to send that information forward, I can connect Nick and that person if you want to get permission to do that from that person.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that when I get a chance, Jan. I'll send it along to you and you can forward it along to Nick.
That would be great, and we'll get them introduced.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Nick, thank you so much for your presentation tonight. It was fabulous. Really appreciate your time this evening on a snow day.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Dr. Fletcher.
The next item on the agenda is our Equity Action Committee presentation.
That's me. Hi, everybody.
I'm going to turn this over to Laura. I just want to say that Laura has been working so hard at chairing this committee. She started with an internship towards her 092 administration, and she took on a behemoth of a committee, which has been very active, meeting regularly, includes students, parents, one board member who comes when she can, teachers, administrators, and Laura has done an amazing job and been very dedicated to it. So with that, I'd like to give my thanks to Laura and turn this over to her.
Well, thanks, Jan. And I'm going to start my timer and watch my own time. And if Trent could forward us up. So when this committee started, it was ages ago, it was a few years ago. It started with the alignment of our new strategic plan. So tonight, because we know the membership of the board is different, the district is different, 3 goals, just brief rationale of our work, making sure we have common understanding of some important terms, give you the background of the group, and a little recap of the district and kind of what the district looks like, and then what are some things we've done, what are some things we're looking to work on in the future. So just like Nick, it wouldn't be a presentation if we didn't tie it to the strategic plan. So if you look at our mission statement, it mentions specifically preparing our students to contribute to a global society by working in partnership with families and the community, and having each student's education be rigorous, personalized, and meaningful. And that ties right in with everything the Equity Committee thinks about. And of course, equity is our first strategic plan goal. I don't need to talk through that. But high quality instruction, again, is tied to the work that the Equity Committee considers, right? If we're doing the best by our students to challenge them and meet them where they're at, we need to know the kids. And lastly, safe and supportive environment is tied really closely to equity, right? If we have a shared respect for each other as human beings and a shared respect for encountering differences and navigating differences, it's going to make everyone feel more welcome. So like I mentioned, this kind of equity committee started with the rollout of the new strategic plan in 2021, when equity rose to the surface as one of the goals that the strategic plan committee decided on. Faculty were invited to apply for a new committee called the Equity Guiding Coalition. So it was mainly teachers, but we had a high school principal and Jan, of course. And we partnered with Dr. Rydell Harrison. He's a former school teacher, principal, superintendent from both down south and in Connecticut. Now he works for the Partners for Educational Leadership. So we partnered with him. It was a closed group. You had to apply. We were building shared understandings about what equity work would be, and gathering data and doing kind of an equity audit of our district. So we were looking at stakeholder experience. That's students, parents, teachers, families, programmatic access, making sure that we are aware if there's certain populations that aren't taking AP or ECE or tech ed classes, who's doing sports. Is there a reason that certain populations aren't engaging with all the great things we have to offer in Old Saybrook? And then, of course, student outcomes. What are our graduation rates? What are kids doing after high school? Are there any gaps, anything we should be addressing that we haven't seen? So that was about a 1.5 year long process. And then last spring, we hosted some informational meetings for any interested parent, and kind of gave them the spiel about what we'd been doing, a little bit of the data, because we want to expand into an action group. So we had 3 interest meetings, and then in June of last year, we had our first equity action committee meeting at a group goal oriented towards identifying specific items to address, addressing them in a really systematic way, looking at how our solutions either addressed or didn't address the problem that we were trying to target, and then, you know, revisiting. Like Jan said, we run the gamut. We have teachers, paraprofessionals, administration, parents, students, and we have a student here tonight. So Caroline Ancona, when we get to the question portion, if she has anything specific that she wants to add or something that she can speak to specifically, she'll speak up. And of course, Eileen from the Board of Ed. Okay, this is the elephant in the room, right? Let's not pretend that words like equity and equality aren't kind of politicized terms at this point, right? So I want to make sure that we all have a shared understanding. This is the same exercise the committee did. So equality means that everyone has the exact same resources and opportunities. Equity is that everyone is provided the resources that they need to be successful or access the opportunities. So education has been doing equity for decades. If you think about a student on an individualized education plan, that is an equitable action that districts take to provide students that need extra supports in order to access the program fully, that kind of thing. So there's this picture that you always see. Go ahead, Trent. Everyone has seen the fence picture, I think, and it's usually the first 2 panels. So the first panel is equality. And if you click again, Trent. Yeah. Right. Thank you. And I always see myself as a kid all the way on the right. I know we're not in person tonight, but everyone will tell you that I'm on the shorter side. And then equity is, you know, we're addressing that the children are different heights, so you give the shorter ones more supports. But the other thing we really think about on this equity committee is, well, is there a barrier to students accessing something that we want them to be able to access, and can we remove that barrier? A really great example is the late bus this year, right? We had kids who needed extra help, needed homework club at the middle school, or wanted access to after school clubs and activities at the middle and high school. And we were able to hire a late bus driver twice a week. And now kids are getting extra homework help. We have clubs happening. And it's just removed a barrier for all the kids, whether they couldn't get a ride home because their parents are working, the family doesn't have a car, or, you know, anything, right? It just erases a barrier for kind of all kids. The way I prefer to think about equity work is actually on the next slide. So there's this great example about curb cuts. Curb cuts, if you don't know, are the little ramps that lead down from a sidewalk whenever the sidewalk is about to cross a road. And city planners started putting curb cuts in for people in wheelchairs, thinking like, oh, no one wants to pop a wheelie getting to the road. And then as city planners were assessing their work, they realized that it was really helpful for moms with strollers, toddlers on those little scooter things that they like to be on, you know, people with the grocery carts, kids on crutches. It was amazing for so many people. And so the idea of the curb cut effect is when we do these targeted interventions, they're targeted at a specific problem, a specific population, but they're often benefit many, many more people. So you can see in the second half of the picture, they had the little bumps so you can tell it's going down. You have sound, you have sight. Everyone gets what they need. Nothing's taken away from anyone. It's all additive solutions that address kind of a wide population. So like out of teacher mode about definitions. Here's a look at Old Saybrook. All of this data was gathered from the state, from EdSite. So this is they call it the 10-year retrospective, but they don't actually include this current year on it. So it's 9 years. I like it because I started in Old Saybrook. This is my 10th year in Old Saybrook. So 2014-15 was my first year here in the district. And you can see our enrollment has dropped just under 400 kids. And these are identified student groups that we can share data for. There's not student data privacy about them. And I try to include the large category and kind of the minority category for each one, both to show you that even though Saybrook is overwhelmingly, white, native English speaking students who do not need free or reduced lunch and are not disabled, these populations are significant within our school district, but also if you only see that kind of surface level of everything, it's really easy to not focus your lens on some of these other populations. It's easy to kind of see the crowd and to kind of miss the detail work, right? And you can also see the growth over time, right? Like our students whose race or ethnicity is something other than white is almost a quarter of our total student population now. Our multilingual learners have grown hugely in that time. Free and reduced lunch continues to be one of our largest subgroups that we look at when we're thinking about equity initiatives. And again, our students with disabilities. Next
Hey,
slide.
Laura, that slide is blurry.
It's blurry. It's not on my screen.
Just came back. Thank you.
Okay, next one. And I know some of us are visual learners and some of us prefer math. I checked this math. I'm so nervous. If there are math people here that want to check my math again, please do. I checked this 13 times. So if we compare the change in the percentage of total enrollment between 2014, 2015 and last academic year, we have a 34% increase in students who identify as a race or ethnicity other than white, a 350% increase in our multilingual learners, right? If you compare that as a percentage, it's huge. Jan will tell you, I forget what number we are in the state in terms of growth of our ML population. Our students eligible for free or reduced meals increased by 37%, and our students with disabilities increased by almost 14%. And that is while our student population overall declines, right? So our student population is getting smaller and these percentages are rising. Next one.
Laura, that number is, we were number 2 in growth over the last 10 years.
Yep, that 350% number really makes sense then. So when we're talking about equity work, we are thinking about impacts on students. We know that students who are identified as high needs, so that means that they've been identified as a multilingual learner, a student with a disability, students receiving free or reduced lunch, these students are more likely to score lower on state assessments. I know Dr. Fletcher's presentation to the board on was it Next Gen, Dr. Fletcher? 5 of the 11 categories with a statistical significance, those were high need students. Increased likelihood of chronic absenteeism, which is an issue in our district. You have potential impacts on behavior referrals, negative impacts in terms of kids' belongings and friendships, and they're less likely to be involved in the after school things. There are other student groups that we also consider when we talk about equity work. We cannot report out data. In fact, I don't even have data about this. I know some people might in the district, probably not all of them, but things like mental health status, changes in family structure, cultural expectations, religion, LGBTQIA plus status, and health issues that aren't categorized as a disability. So these might be kids with a health plan, but not a specific IEP. There's not shareable data because of privacy reasons, obviously, but we know that these have impacts on students. The number of times I've had a student who their parents get divorced and one parent moves away in the middle of the year, that creates inequities in their education that have to be considered. The other thing I want to say is, of course, students might belong to more than one of these groups at a time, and their membership in different groups can change over time as well. Next one. So what have we done? in both past and ongoing, there's been professional development both at the district level. Dr. Harrison gave 3 different PD sessions for the entire faculty on kind of implicit bias and how that impacts microaggressions and feelings of belonging for students. We've also been working with Dr. Marissa Ferraro on ML strategies to more effectively work with our ML students. All of the district building and teacher goals are now SMARTY goals instead of SMART goals. So the I and the E at the end are involve inclusion and equity. And we have so that's like kind of like systemic system level things. No one really sees that outside of the district, right? But on a more public facing thing, we made sure on the district calendar to make sure that major religious holidays represented by our student populations were notated correctly in terms of start and stop times if they start in the evening. I'm thinking like Jewish holidays, Muslim holidays. And we also added more holidays to better represent our student population. These are events where our students might miss school or might need to have acknowledgement by teachers that they might not get homework done if they're traveling to temple and they're not going to be available to, study for a test, things like that. We want to acknowledge that that's an important part of our students and our families' lives, and that can have impacts on their school. We've also tweaked our climate surveys and our exit interviews that the superintendent does, and Jan tweaked her own, of course, to include more questions that get at, do you feel like you belong here? Do you feel like, people respect you as a person? Do you, like, what can we do? Staffing, there is both things like hiring a late bus driver when we can find one, but also the state has new legislation coming down that we're going to be addressing on encouraging districts to make sure that they are sampling from a wide pool of potential applicants to hopefully increase educator diversity. Our educator diversity as a staff has actually increased. We have more Hispanic and Latino teachers, which kind of matches our growing ML population. And that's been really important. Adding more ML staff members who can support teachers and work with students and families. It's been really important. Dr. Bachman at the middle schools piloted this amazing ML family interview for when we get new ML students, and it's with the parents and the student, and it runs the gamut of like, tell me about their school before here, if they came from, a country that wasn't America, right? Because the schooling systems are often different. What is your kid really good at? What does your kid struggle with? What concerns do you have? What do you wish for your kid? What do you want to see from us? It's been really amazing in making connections between these families and making them feel like their voice matters. We also, through our school guidance offices, have been running food and clothing assistance for families. This started during COVID, of course, when our amazing kitchen staff made sure that families could pick up meals both during the school year and over the summer. And this has now continued, and it's, our jeans on Friday money goes towards stocking the pantry, or, an all call goes out, hey, we need cleats for the spring sports season. Who's got cleats at home that they don't need anymore? Things like that, making sure that there are no barriers for participation in anything that a kid may want to participate in. The work we've been doing kind of this winter in the equity group is highlighting specific work we might want to target as subgroups of the Equity Action Committee this spring. And some things that came up in our last few meetings are running focus groups, right? We want to hear from kids. If I am trying to figure out and imagine things from Jane's perspective, it's way better if I just ask Jane about her life and her experiences than impose what I think Jane needs or wants from me, right? Developing strategies for increased club and sports participation. This came directly from some of our student members on our committee, ways that we can do that. And I immediately had an idea that was immediately shot down as not effective. And this is why focus groups are important. Mentor and mentee programs between high school and middle school students and students at Goodwin, especially students new to the district, that can really help kind of bring them into the fold. And it's also a great way to build some capacity, some leadership, some self-esteem in some of our older students as well. This is the next one is another one that came directly from students. We have very specific and strict laws about what information we can share about students at what time and for what reason. And one of the strictest laws is about IEPs and 504 sharing. So students with specific individualized education plans or accommodation needs. You are only allowed to have that information if you teach that student at that time. Makes sense. But when we have transitions between buildings, and particularly when students at the high school start taking these ECE and AP courses and have summer work, oftentimes those teachers aren't necessarily aware of what accommodations those students might need when they're assigning work and giving those packets at the end of the school year in preparation for next August, right? So looking at how we can disseminate that information that is still legal and protective of students' rights, but also supports them in their summer learning if they need those supports. And of course, how do we schedule programming after school during the day to support parents with young children, new to the district parents, right? I don't have young children, but I have seen enough of them, and I'm an aunt to a lovely 6-year-old, and I know that if it's at night and there's no childcare and the 6-year-old's throwing a tantrum or he's had a bad day, like my sister's not going, she's gonna stay at home, you know, so supporting those families as well is really important. And we're at questions.
Great. Fabulous presentation, Laura. Board members, do we have, Karen, here we go.
Yeah, just a quick question. So I know, looking at increased participation in clubs and things like that, would indicate how we're doing in certain aspects, but how do we how can we, Laura, measure progress with these equity initiatives in school?
So the progress and what we're measuring matter. How we measure it, I guess, it depends on what we're measuring. I actually have information from Brendan Saunders, our athletic director. He's also the activities director. He actually maintains lists of all the after school club and sport participation. So we can actually compare that from year to year. And I'm actually spent the snow day learning how to use Excel so that I can collate data more efficiently so that we can then search by different groups of historically marginalized populations to make sure that there is growth. And the other thing to consider is these focus groups, I think, are going to be really key. One thing that Jan mentioned after she did her exit interviews for last year's senior classes, some of the kids that we might try and target for why aren't you doing clubs and activities, they told her they did not want to do it. They would rather have a job and contribute that way, right? So we have to make sure that we're not assuming what's best for kids or what they want. And that's another, like, it's a family, it could be a cultural expectation too, right? You work, you don't do, whatever. So we're building systems kind of behind the scenes to measure some of this work, but I do really think the focus groups and finding what the kids feel like they want and need is going to be important. The other piece of data I have that I'm still combing through is we have the strategic plan and school climate survey data from last year, where you can compare how kids answer questions about belonging and access to programming and how they feel about school and do people respect them and do they have a voice, and comparing the answers between students and teachers and parents has been fascinating, because students were asked specific questions on, like, I have the same opportunities as everyone else, regardless of my gender, regardless of my abilities, regardless of my family's income. And those answers, especially around my family's language, are very different from kids to faculty. Faculty are so concerned that they are not doing right by our students who are just learning English. They answered overwhelmingly that they felt that, like, kids were missing things because their families aren't necessarily native English speakers. And the kids all said, no, this is fine. It's not a problem. They've all come up with strategies. It's like not an issue for kids. And I think that speaks to really the kids are adapting, but the faculty are so conscious of something. This is something that we haven't had practice with as a district. And we feel like this is a real weakness professionally, both individually and as a group. And I think a lot of the PD we've been doing has helped with that. It'll be interesting to compare those answers between this year's surveys and next year's.
Thank you.
Eileen.
You got to unmute yourself.
Better? Thank you. I just want to say thank you for this initiative. I know it's part of, working toward another degree, but I think what's interesting about this is that it's really composed of our cross-section of parents and teachers. And as my schedule permits, I'm always interested in diversity and equity. It's just sort of part of my being. The piece that I appreciate is taking a look, and it's on the district calendar changes. This is something that's come up, and We have so many different kinds of students. And at the same time, because we don't have a high percentage, let's say, of students maybe coming from, a Jewish background, there's sensitivity now maybe toward teachers of taking a look at who's in their classes. Anybody here, have something, I'd like to give this examination, anybody available? Where before it would probably just have been not even addressed. So taking each and one of these and then making sure that teachers feel comfortable and you're getting that feedback. And so I think, and students are mentioning that too, that they feel like they're respected just based on the fact they're on overload and they can't take heavy duty tests in every class. We've talked about that before, just on the Board of Education. How do teachers, do they talk to each other? Do teachers talk to one another? How interdisciplinary are the conversations among teachers themselves so that they know that they're not putting out schedules and things that are just not conducive to families or students. So a big swallow on a lot of these, but very exciting that you're partnering also with, Dr. Bachman, because I think that's an initiative for the district too, to see how parents are feeling about the engagement. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think Jan uses the word belonging all the time, and I should have used it more because it's like really what all this is about, right? I think we've all had experiences where we go somewhere and we don't feel like we fit in for whatever reason. For me, it was maybe leading the pep band at my first football game 10 years ago. Like, I'm not a football person. I didn't, feel super comfortable, but acknowledging that acknowledging everyone as themselves and their person, meeting them where they're at, it goes such a long way, I think, just to building relationships, which helps kids learn. That's documented. The
other piece is I don't think I'm that familiar with your food, clothing, and assistance.
Oh.
I'd like to find out a little bit more about it. So, if people have clothing and they want to get rid of it and they don't really know who to give it to.
Yeah, so that's absolutely something. I can work with our guidance offices on some messaging around that and some more information. It started with them, right? They're often some of our frontline workers when they know that families are in need, financially usually. And it kind of started, as some of the food grants and stuff ran out post-COVID, there's little drop boxes in the office, I know, at the middle and the high school and the faculty rooms, where you can drop off non-perishable goods and kids can grab food home on the weekends. I know actually at the middle school for Christmas, they did arts and crafts for kids that needed to have Christmas presents for their parents.
Lovely.
And we get all calls, especially for sports equipment as the kids grow at the middle school, because they, middle school kid breathes and their shoe size changes 3 days later, right? And that can be really.
I'm gonna stop Laura from volunteering again because she volunteers herself all the time to run things. So she knows that's something she and I are working on together. But I want to say, I think we need to be really clear. Old Saybrook as a community and Old Saybrook Public Schools does an amazing job of giving to people and supporting them in their time of need, whether it's your house burned down or there's been a sudden change in the family dynamics or structure, or someone has an ongoing financial need. What we're really focused on in this group is making people feel like this is their place. This is the home, they belong, and they have something to bring to the table that we are interested in. And that's really the work of this group. And whether that's because they have academic challenges or economic challenges or racial differences, religious differences, whatever it is, we want them to feel connected. And we're focusing this year on our ML population because that's our biggest minority group that's growing so quickly and quickly becoming, a larger part of the entire demographic as the total enrollment decreases. And we really are focusing on making sure that they know this is their home. These schools are their schools, and we want them involved in whatever way they want to be involved, being respectful of the fact that they may not want to be involved the same way we would like them to be involved. That's not what they're into. So I just want to say to Laura, nice, fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank Caroline and Connor for being on the call tonight too. So appreciate you being the board meeting tonight. So again, thank you so much. So moving on, we have a disclosure letter. Jan, even Pam.
No, I'll turn this. I did that wrong. I turned on the wrong microphone. I'm going to turn this over to Pam. You've seen these before. You saw them come in from Mrs. Pendleton all the time, and now you have one from Mrs. Lestority.
Okay, so the letter just shares with you that for the past number of years, my oldest son is an apprentice with Sal Oso, who happens to be the electrician that we've used in district for a number of years. And just so that you're aware of that, as an extra level of clarity for you all, I wanted to let you know I've already talked with all our custodians, and any work that's being done in our buildings by Majestic Electric is being reviewed and signed off by the buildings, so that the head custodians, which makes sense anyway, the head custodians who are in the buildings requesting the work to be done are the ones signing off and saying, yes, in fact, this work is done. And so just so that you're aware, that's the practice that we're putting in place. We're also doing that for any of the other maintenance work in the buildings. I want to make sure that they're happy with the work that's being done, regardless of the vendor. And so that's just one of the things we're putting in place. Any questions?
Steve, go ahead.
Just trying to make sure I understand. So is this the first time we've seen this letter?
From me, it is.
Okay, but your son has been working there for several years.
Yes, he worked while he was still in school. And that relationship was brought about through the fire department. My son's in the fire.
I'm just so I guess the point of my question, or the crux of it is, if we have this procedure in place for notifying when they're potentially, so why this year are we being notified, but we haven't been notified in the past year?
I can answer that, Steve, because Pam was not in an authority position. She was not in a decision-making position. She is now. So similar to these that you've seen when for our last director of operations, she had a family member working for a company that she was working on contracts with. So we don't want it to look like there's any kind of interference in our contract process, our awarding process. And that's why Pam is bringing this to you now.
So that requirement for disclosure only applies if they're in a position that, it's not how I interpreted the disclosure. If we're doing business, whether she oversees them or not, I mean, it's still personal relationships. I guess my question, how many other employees?
I think the difference was my previous position had no role in determining who did the work.
I understand that. What I'm saying is, okay, but you had a relationship with the previous person that you're in that position now, right? So you had a personal relationship. So the reason for disclosures is to identify any personal relationships. It's not just, oh, now I might have a chance.
Steve, if I could speak up, and if I'm wrong, please forgive me, but it's not about a personal relationship. It's about the possibility to influence or authorize work. And so Pam, in her interim position, is now has the authority to sign contracts, assign work, sign off for work. And she is revealing this because she doesn't want to be, so they've put supports in place so that other people are now responsible for signing off on work that her son may be involved with. So previously she was not in a position to do that. So it's not about personal relationships. It's about your position in the organization as to whether you can influence or control the work.
Her previous position in the organization had the opportunity to influence work. She had a close relationship with Julie. I'm not upset. I'm just
knowing somebody isn't
on this. My understanding was that the disclosures were for if any employees. That's not the case, Jen?
We've never done that because we are in a small town and everybody knows everybody. So I think pretty much everything would have to be disclosed. But it's when you have a position of authority. For instance, if I'm going to hire someone and my family members work for that person, I would absolutely have to disclose that. If a teacher in our district works, has a family member who's doing work for us, they have no authority, no position, and no power to exert over the process. And so that would not be something we would disclose. And that may very well be true, and I may not even be aware of it.
I have nothing further.
Okay. Moving on, we have a deposit account resolution with Essex Savings Bank.
This is just requiring a board decision to allow Pamela Storty to be the signatory on these accounts, because she has to replace Julie Pendleton. When you hire the new superintendent, you'll have to go through this process again, because that's the other person with the signatures. So this is just a formality, but we do need a vote, and we do need to give the minutes of this meeting over to them so that they can make the changes.
Eileen? You're on mute.
I'd like to make a motion to have that arranged with Essex Savings Bank to be able to have Pamela Storty be able to be the representative for the district.
Have a second by Kelly. Any discussion? Okay, seeing there's no discussion, I'd like to take a vote on this. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you. I also want to ask Caroline if she would like to leave, if she wants to.
Aaron, in the wake of that vote, also with the minutes, we need your signature on some documents for Essex Savings Bank, which you can stop by at the office at any point and sign that.
Yeah, I did see that. I'll stop by later in the week. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, thanks, Trent. Okay, now we have a leave of absence request.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say that if Laura Carruthers and Dr. Fletcher want to sign off, I don't think we need them again either, Chairman Nichols.
Okay. Laura, if you feel free to leave if you'd like to.
Aye.
Okay. So this is, you've seen these before. This is something that we're required to do. We have someone who is requesting a leave of absence. This is someone who was out on a medical leave and is now requesting the rest of the year as a leave of absence. This was following maternity leave, and I support it, and so does the principal.
I make a motion to acknowledge this leave of absence request.
May I have a second?
Okay.
By Karen. Any discussion? All those in favor of this request?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Thank you. Okay. Now I want to ask Samantha and Amelia, feel free to leave now if you'd like to, okay? About 8:20 right now. Okay, so I am looking for a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of superintendent search update and for an Old Saybrook Education Associate MOU.
So moved.
A second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Just a few minutes to get on.
Okay, now there are instructions, so we're going to leave this. We're going to leave this meeting and go to the Google Meet per the email we just received early tonight. Okay, so we'll see you there shortly.
So Pam, they're in executive session, but we're still streaming. So I'm gonna mute and kill my camera so that it goes to black until they return. Jim, the executive session is taking place in a Google Meet, not here in the Zoom. Jim, can you hear me?
Trent, can you hear me?
Yes. The executive session is taking place in a Google Meet, not in this Zoom.
Oh, okay. I got the wrong link then.
Yep. So it should be in. I just emailed it about an hour or so ago.
Okay, let me check.
Okay. So yeah, we're good.
However, I'm going to keep my camera off because I think I'm still with an unstable internet here.
Okay. Who are we waiting on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got Steve.
We need Karen. There she is.
Karen, there's Karen.
Okay, took me a minute. Sorry, guys.
Okay, it's I think we're all here. It's 9:08. We're coming out of executive session. Trent, are you up right now?
No, I've got it. I think he's gone. I think Trent's gone.
Nope, I'm here.
Oh, you are there. Oh, awesome.
Is YouTube running right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Karen, you want to do the motion?
Okay, Trent, I'd like to make a motion to approve the MOU between the Old Saybrook Board of Education and the Old Saybrook Education Association with the amended language of, how do I change 50% to $50? I have to look at that. I don't have it in front of me.
Amending the item that reads 50% to $50 is fine.
Okay.
I'm seconding it, I think.
Second by Eileen.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion?
Hey. I'd like to record my explanation in the minutes. And that being that I don't agree that teachers should have to cost share the substitute.
I'm sorry, Board Member Beeler, can you repeat your explanation, please?
I don't agree that teachers should have to cost share the substitute.
Okay.
Any abstentions? Okay, so moved. I'm now looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks so much, Karen. Thank you again.
Thanks.